Welcome to IMS Get Set Law. In this video, we are going to discuss one of the most important legal maxim, which is Injuria Sine Damnum. It translates to injury without damage. And in the coming video, we are also going to discuss Damnum Sine Injuria, which translates to damage without injury. In this video, we'll only focus on injury without damage and a little bit of introduction of damage without injury. There are two terms, damage and injury. Both seems like synonym to each other, and we'll understand what is the difference between these two, right? Our session flow will be, we'll understand what is the background of the case, how it is connected to this legal maxim injury without damage, the legal issues and argument of that case, how it was decided, what was said in the case. First, we'll have to understand what is injury and what is damage. And third, the judgment and the legal significance of this legal maxim and the case. First, let's understand what is the difference between injury and damage. So, there is some right. Now, right could be of different types, right? So, a right which is backed by law, any particular act, any particular law gives any right. So, this right is called legal right, right? Now, legal right means that right could be enforced in a court of law. Legal right means that court recognizes that right of a person, and if this right is violated, there is some remedy available for that. Now, what is right and what is legal right? Right, there are many type of rights which are not recognized by the court of law. We are only talking about legal right. Legal right means that kind of right which is recognized by court of law. Why it is recognized by court of law? Because it has backing of the law. Backing of the law in the sense that it is given by any particular act. For example, fundamental rights. Fundamental rights are also legal rights because it can be enforced. Rights regarding privacy, rights regarding, for example, you have right to get license after 18, right? After you turn from minor to major, you have a right to get license after 18, and it is given under Motor Vehicles Act. Now, this is a right and this is also a legal right. If a person or any authority does not let you to get a license without any proper justification, then your legal right is violated. I hope you understand what is the difference between a right and a legal right. Legal right is backed by law, legal right is recognized by a court of law, and it could be enforced in a court of law. Now, when this right is violated, when the right is violated, legal right, I am talking about legal right, it is violated, it is said that that person suffers injury. The first person suffers injury. When the right is violated, the person suffers injury. Means that injury and right goes hand in hand. If a legal right is violated, the person suffers legal injury. Now, court recognizes that a person has suffered legal injury because there is violation of right, and court will provide remedy for it. This is the basic concept, right? And in this maxim, we are going to discuss something regarding this only, and I wanted to give you a basics of right and injury. Once again, when a legal right is violated, when a right is violated, there is an injury, right? And if legal right is violated, there is legal injury, and court recognizes that legal injury. Court will provide remedy, which could be compensation or any other kind of damages, any other kind of monetary compensation. It could be anything, remedy could be anything, right? Now, in this legal maxim, Injuria Sine Damnum, it translates to injury without damage. Now, I hope we have understood what is injury. Injury comes after the right is violated, right? Now, there is a confusion, maybe there is a confusion. What is the difference between injury and damage? Damage is not connected to any right, like injury is. Injury is connected to right. How? When the right is violated, there is injury. Damage is basically what? Damage is some kind of loss. Damage is some kind of loss. It may be financial, it may be physical loss, it may be loss of reputation, right? So damage is basically loss. Now let's understand with what we have just discussed what this maxim means, right? So injury, matlab there is, it means that right is violated, then there is injury, but there is no loss of any kind, be financial, be physical, be reputation, there is no loss. Now the question here is, when there is injury and the person against whom the injury has been committed suffers no loss, what remedy he has? If there is no loss, financial loss, no monetary loss, no property loss, no reputation loss, no. So whether he has any kind of remedy which means that whether he'll get any kind of compensation. That is what the question is in this case. Now let's understand about this case, Ashby versus White. I hope we have understood what is the difference between injury and damage and how injury is connected to right. Just pause the video and revise it in your head, right? And then let's start. So the fact of the case was in Ashby versus White is the plaintiff Mr. Ashby was prevented from voting. He was prevented from voting in an election by a Mr. White, a constable, who claimed that Mr. Ashby was not a settled inhabitant eligible to vote. The crux of the facts of the case is that Mr. Ashby was not allowed to vote by a constable named Mr. White, and Mr. White gave the argued that he is not a qualified voter. So Mr. Ashby argued that his exclusion from the voting violated his fundamental right. This is the facts of the case. Mr. Ashby, he was not allowed to vote by Mr. White, and now Mr. Ashby claims that his fundamental rights to vote is violated, right? This is the facts of the case. Now the issue raised by Mr. Ashby is whether he could claim damages. He said yes, he can claim damages. I think we have understood the facts of the case. Now, arguments on behalf of the plaintiff and the defendant. Plaintiff wanted compensation because his fundamental right, his right to vote, was violated, right? The primary issue in Ashby versus White was whether a person can claim rights over the damages suffered due to the actions of another. This was the issue, whether Mr. Ashby can claim damages. Now, the damages here, this word damage is different from this word damages is different from damage. Damage means compensation, right? I think you all know regarding this. Damage means compensation. The defendant in this case claimed that although defendant prevented Mr. Ashby from voting, the candidate whom the Ashby wanted to vote for won in the election. The candidate Mr. Ashby is the plaintiff whose right was violated, means he has suffered the injury, right? And after suffering the injury, the defendant is giving an argument that the candidate for whom Mr. Ashby wanted to vote for won in the election, and that's why Mr. Ashby suffered no loss. This is the main argument here, that Mr. Ashby's right is violated. He is accepting that. He has suffered the injury. He is also accepting that. He means defendant. But he is giving an argument that even though his right was violated, he was not allowed to vote. But the candidate he wanted to vote for won. And that means that Mr. Ashby has not suffered any damage, any loss, right? Preventing someone from voting did not cause any injury or damage to the plaintiff. Thus, Mr. Ashby. Now, I think we have understood the facts of the case, the arguments. Now, let's move to the arguments of plaintiff and defendant. The plaintiff's argument is basically the same as the facts of the case, that he has suffered a legal injury, and that injury is that he was not allowed to vote, which is his fundamental right. This fundamental right is violated. That's why he is entitled to compensation. The argument of the defendant in this case is that even though Mr. Ashby, the plaintiff, was not allowed to vote for a candidate, but the candidate he wanted to vote for already won. That means he has suffered no damage. That was the argument of the defendant. He said that although defendant prevented Mr. Ashby from voting, the candidate whom Ashby wanted to vote for in the election won, right? And that's why causing no actual loss to the plaintiff. This is the argument of the defendant in this case, that Mr. Ashby was prevented from voting. He wanted to vote for, let's say, Mr. X, and Mr. X won, which means that he has suffered no loss. This is the argument of the defendant. Further, he said that preventing someone from voting did not cause any injury or damage to plaintiff. Thus, Mr. Ashby could not claim any damages. Damages means compensation. Mr. Ashby did not suffered any injury. Mr. Ashby did not suffered any damage, means loss, because the candidate he wanted to vote for won. That's why he cannot claim any compensation. That was the argument of the defendant. Now let's move to what the court said in this case. The court said there was, first of all, it said that there is violation of Mr. Ashby's fundamental right to vote. Yes, even though Mr. Ashby did not sustain any actual loss or damage. This is the judgment on the point of on the argument of defendant, which the defendant was saying that he suffered no actual loss. So court is saying even though the Mr. Ashby plaintiff did not sustain any actual loss or damage, his fundamental right was violated. Ashby was entitled to a remedy and could claim compensation damages against Mr. White. Further, the court said it is immaterial whether the candidate won or lost. The material point is that the right of the plaintiff was violated. So there is injury. Right of the plaintiff was violated, so there is injury, even though there is no damage. And because of that injury, the plaintiff is entitled to get compensation. The plaintiff is entitled to get the remedy. This is what was said by the court. Even though Mr. Ashby did not sustain any actual loss or damage, his fundamental right was violated. His fundamental right was violated and he is entitled to remedy. This is one of the landmark judgment of Injuria Sine Damnum, injury without damage. It was established that a person's legal right could be violated without causing any physical damage or financial loss. Without causing any physical damage or financial loss, this is what was settled in this case. Means the injury without damage maxim was given proper meaning in this case. Proper interpretation was given in this case, that if a person hasn't suffered any damage because of the action of any other person, he will still be entitled to get compensation if the injury is legal injury, right? The court held that the infringement of Ashby's right to vote was a legal injury, even though it did not result to any loss. So this is the maxim, and the interpretation was given in the case of Ashby versus White. In crux, what it said, that even though there is no loss, no damage, no financial loss, no physical damage, but if there is legal injury, the plaintiff will be entitled to remedy, right? In the coming video, we'll also cover this maxim damnum sine injuria, which means damage without any legal injury, and what happens in this case. This will be our fourth video of landmark judgments, and we have started this series of video, and we have covered already first and second part of the series, and we have covered some landmark judgments of torts law. I hope you go and watch those videos as well. And please subscribe to our channel, Instagram, YouTube, Telegram, and we'll come with more landmark judgments video. Thank you so much.